Be it GameStop, EB Games, or a locally owned mom and pop shop, game stores are awesome. Sure, you can order all your games online or exclusively off Steam and PSN like some kind of recluse, but brick and mortar shops bring with them an experience. At least that's what they strive for. Sometimes it's fun to stop by them with a friend and make a journey out of it. Maybe today is the day you finally find that last retro game you need for your collection, or maybe you'd like to chat and be around your fellow gamers at various events. Whatever the reason, game stores are cool, especially the small ones. Sure, they may not have as many of the new games, but they carry every other kind of used game. Plus, when trading in games, if that's your thing, you tend to get a more fair amount back than from larger chain stores. But what does it take to own one? How do you start one? And will they even last much longer? To help answer these questions, I got into contact with Muzz, a successful game store owner based in Dublin, Ohio. He started off just gathering a small collection of games and selling them at his local flea market, while simultaneously working another job.
I worked full-time at the time, and I actually even I got a chef's position while I was doing that, and was doing all that at once, working crazy hours.
Eventually, as his business continued to grow for 6 years,
I did my first retail location in 2005. At the end of 2005, I moved to City Center Mall, and I had built up enough stuff to actually fill a retail location.
In my research, I learned that most entrepreneurs will take out a business loan before starting their own store of any kind. Not Muzz. Though it took him 6 years, when he finally started, everything was his. No debt. A fact he prides himself on, and highly recommends. Now, of course, being located inside a mall means there will be other competition.
You have game stores like GameStop, and at the time we had Game Crazy, I think it was. I had to compete with those places.
Most small businesses with competition of this size will fail. Perfect example, multiple studies from all around the country throughout the years have found that whenever a new Walmart appears in town, 35 to 40% of locally owned businesses will go out of business within 1 to 2 years. I've seen it firsthand in my hometown, where there was once a GameStop, Game Crazy, EB Games, and 5 locally owned game stores. Now there is only GameStop and 1 locally owned game store. Muzz made sure to stay in business for so long by not necessarily viewing GameStop as competition. He never tried to outdo them, just be different enough, which his store certainly is. The same can be said of the Bog Bean, the only remaining small game store in my hometown. Video games are only about a third of what they sell, maybe a little more. They also have music, books, and movies. Muzz kept himself different by continuing to sell games of all types, not only the most recent 2 generations. That, and making sure to have top-notch customer service and offering more fair prices on buying and selling used games. Eventually, as his business practices continued, the GameStop left.
People ask me all the time, oh, are you glad that you don't have a GameStop in the mall anymore? The GameStop here recently left the mall.
Muzz does bring up a key point.
Staying separate from them and differentiating myself from them is what really helped me make my strides in business and make myself successful. I started carrying the wallets and keychains and belt buckles and accessories and toys and anything I can get my hands on that other video game stores don't sell. I order in. I specifically look for things that I haven't seen at other stores. So when I'm going through my distributor list online or whatever, I'll say, oh, well, Hot Topic has that wallet, I'm not going to buy it. Or Spencer's has that wallet, I'm not going to buy it. Or I saw that keychain over at this store. I try to keep stuff that is completely original to my store so people don't go, oh, well, I can also go get that over there. And that really helps you with the competition. It not only helps fill up wall space and make my store look more full, but it gives people the option to buy stuff that they wouldn't otherwise find at a video game store.
A point I'd like to see other small game stores mimic. Don't try to be the next GameStop. Don't try to directly compete with them, or you won't last long. Be different. This way, You and GameStop, or another major game retailer, can share more of the same customers, since you both offer different things, rather than customers choosing one or the other, since you trying to be a GameStop more than likely means you aren't as good, or at least not as well known. So what does it take to run a game store?
You don't get into this business if you want to become mega rich. You don't get into this business if you think you're just going to make a bunch of money and play video games all the time. That's not the truth. Don't ever take something you love and make a job out of it and expect to love it and make a fortune, because that doesn't always work out.
A true point. A point brought up frequently in the book Paid to Play by David Hodgson, among others. A lot of people who don't know what they're doing try to open video game stores or apply for a job at one, thinking it will be all fun and games. Well, guess what? It's not. Retail is retail. Meaning, a big chunk of the job is not only managing everything, but dealing with the general public.
This job would be great if it wasn't for the f***ing customers.
But yes, I have absolutely gotten backlash from people for it. And grow up, you're a loser, you play video games for a living, because that comes from people who don't understand what it takes to run a business and everything that running a business entails. They work for someone else, they don't know the trials that you face when you open your own business, when you're working for yourself, and when you have to deal with everything running a business takes. I do this because I love it.
Some people have a knack for it. Most don't.
That's what it takes. You have to love what you do. I work a lot of hours. You can't just start a business and walk away from it and expect it to make a lot of money. You have to persevere, you have to be constantly present, and you have to run it. You have to do everything you can to keep it running and keep it running efficiently. So I work 40, 50 hours a week, and at a minimum. During the holidays, I'll bust 70, 75 hours a week.
As I said, it is not for everyone. I took a few business and entrepreneurship courses in college, as eventually owning a game store was my goal at the time. Oh, how I was naive. As the classes went on and reality set in, I realized it was certainly not for me. Until you become a business owner, or even a manager, you have no idea how hard it is. Especially if you are the one building the business from the ground up. It's not as easy as just buying and selling, and paying employees, and managing their schedules, and the list goes on and on. Marketing plays a huge part of it too.
The first taste is with the eye. Presentation is oftentimes just as important as how good the product is. So when people walk in the store, they need to see something that pops. They need to see something that stands out to them. They need to say, wow, this place looks cool. And when people are standing away from the store looking in, the store pops from across the other side of the mall. And that's what I want people to notice. I want people to say, wow, I gotta go into that place. If you have a plain place, they don't see anything interesting from far away, then why are they even going to attempt to get closer to it? And once they come in, the decoration of the store itself, the paint job, the way things are displayed, the marketing in general, I think that's all very important.
Which is another issue I've seen some of my local stores having. A lot of them had plain white walls and boring logos. The shelving was all white or just metal too. And sure enough, they didn't last long. And heck, even just keeping the store stocked can be a challenge. You might think that since a store is buying from the customers as well, the owners don't have to worry about keeping shelves as full. But this isn't always the case.
Trying to keep games on the wall, trying to get people to trade games in constantly. Part of the reason I get some good trades in is because I get a lot of walk-by traffic. So people talk and they see the store and they say, oh, I have some games at home. That's also part of the reason that I order in all those accessories and bags and buckles and all that stuff. Because stocking the store and making it look full and complete is part of what keeps people interested. If people walk in and it's empty, then they're not going to be very inclined to come back. And if they don't see something that they think is neat or something that they want to tell their friends about, then they're just going to walk out unimpressed, and you'll never see them or any of their friends that they might tell about it, or experience that business that you could later have if they were impressed when they walked out.
So, yes, it takes a certain type of person to keep game stores afloat. A person who loves what they do while simultaneously putting in a lot of time, hard work, and dedication. But another big hurdle in running any business is planning ahead. Planning for the future. And this is especially the case for game stores. A lot of intelligent people have been speculating that the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox whatever may not have disk drives. They may move fully onto a digital-only platform, which then means stores like Level 1 Games, Bog Bean, and every other used game store is limited to games of generations past, which likely won't hurt immediately after release. But what about 5 years afterwards? Or 10 years?
Gaming generations, I mean, console to console takes so long, but gaming generations as far as gamers go happen very quickly. You know, every few years there's a new batch of new gamers who have never gamed before. You know, the gamers who are 8 years old today, in 4 years are going to be wanting to play what they consider to be hardcore games. I mean, they're seeing more and more games sold on Xbox Live and PSN and Virtual Console. So they look at this and they think it's normal. And then the gamers, the next 4 years after them and the next 4 years after them, they're not going to know at all what it's like to have a physical game in their hands. I don't know if selling, you know, PS2 games and Xbox One games 10 years down the road from now is going to be a big thing without new games on walls and with gamers sitting in their house and buying games and not having to go to the store to get them anymore. I don't know that there's going to be a real market for what I do. And that's a scary thing. No one wants to think that of their business, but it is kind of also the way of the future. I mean, that's why we see bookstores closing down everywhere. And I mean, there used to be a Walton's bookstore right here in the mall. And there used to be a Barnes & Noble down at one of the strip centers I know, and it's gone. I mean, it's just something that may be the way of the future. I see it as the end for stores like mine, for stores like GameStop. Now, I think I do have something to look forward to in that I do sell a lot of merchandise. Doing that, I could alter my store into a Spencer's type store, a Hot Topics type store that's centered around gaming and gamers. I could still sell a few retro games, and I could probably make a very good living doing it, and that's probably the direction I'll lean in if the next generation of consoles are just, you know, basically hard drives, set-top boxes that hook up to your TV and download everything they play or stream everything they play. And I'll do my best to work around that and stay strong in business.
So, what does the future hold for game stores and their owners? Only time will tell. Muzz has a plan, but I've already seen plenty of game stores open and close. And with what the next generation may bring, the closing may happen on an even wider scale, and only the smartest store owners will survive. But in the meantime, thank you, small video game stores, for offering a more retro and close-knit experience. And while I'm at it, thank you, GameStop. As a corporation, we may not all be fans, but many of your local stores have pretty cool people working there, and make the place awesome. So to Muzz, and to all game store owners, and to all of their customers, make sure to never stop using your noggins, and keep those businesses awesome. So Muzz, one more question. Does your cat still hate Mega Man?
Yes, absolutely. She hates Mega Man with a passion. I've never seen a cat, when I turn on the Wii, she hears the music. No matter where she is in the house, she comes running. And if she sees the little Mega Man icon, she freaks out. The funny thing is, if I ever turn on the other Wii, where I don't have Mega Man, she comes running and then she just looks at it confused. She genuinely comes when she hears the music, specifically to attack the Mega Man icon on my Wii. I don't know what her beef is. Maybe she works for Wiley.
Out a business loan before starting their own store of any kind. Not Muzz. Though it took him 6 years, when he finally started, everything was his. No debt. A fact he prides himself on, and highly recommends. Now, of course, being located inside a mall means there will be other competition.
You have game stores like GameStop, and at the time we had Game Crazy, I think it was. I had to compete with those places.
Most small businesses with competition, be it GameStop, EB Games, or a locally owned mom-and-pop shop, game stores are awesome. Sure, you can order all your games online or exclusively off Steam and PSN like some kind of recluse, but brick-and-mortar shops bring with them an experience. At least that's what they strive for. Sometimes it's fun to stop by them with a friend and make a journey out of it. Maybe today is the day you finally find that last retro game you need for your collection, or maybe you'd like to chat and be around your fellow gamers at various events. Whatever the reason, game stores are cool, especially the small ones. Sure, they may not have as many of the new games, but they carry every other kind of used game. Plus, when trading in games, if that's your thing, you tend to get a more fair amount back than from, larger chain stores. But what does it take to own one? How do you start one? And will they even last much longer? To help answer these questions, I got into contact with Muzz, a successful game store owner based in Dublin, Ohio. He started off just gathering a small collection of games and selling them at his local flea market, while simultaneously working another job.
I worked full-time at the time, and I actually even I got a chef's position while I was doing that, and was doing all that at once, working crazy hours.
Eventually, as his business continued to grow for 6 years,
I did my first retail location in 2005. At the end of 2005, I moved to City Center Mall, and I had built up enough stuff to actually fill a retail location.
In my research, I learned that most entrepreneurs will take